Welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
Fairies wear boots, you gotta believe me. I saw it with my own two eyes.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we are doing part 2 of our discussion on urban fantasy, the part where we take what we talked about last time and we do a little bit of world building with it.
And I'm just gonna start with the quote. If anybody was able to see past that veil into the fantasy of our modern urban fantasy, it absolutely would have been Ozzy.
Yeah, probably. So this is something that we have done in the past, but it's been a very long time since we've done any real solid world building on this podcast. And with us being a homebrew podcast, that is something that I feel we need to do more of.
Yeah, I agree. And I enjoy the heck out of it. I love brainstorming. It's probably one of my absolute favorite things to do is just bouncing off random chaotic ideas. And again, even brainstorming with, like, if you're writing or story development, as we said before, when things work right, they fit well like puzzle pieces, and you don't have to force stuff together. And you can feel when the pieces are starting to slide in together, and it's exciting when it happens. So, does it work all the time? Not every time, but when it starts to go right, there is a definite thrill that comes with it.
Yeah, I've never been very good at brainstorming by myself. I always really need someone else there. I need somebody to throw out ideas in order for my ideas to manifest. That's always been the case for me. I've never been able to sit down with a blank sheet of paper and just throw out ideas. I need a seed. I need a seed crystal to build my brainstorm off of.
Absolutely. And that and a sounding board. Because, I mean, most people are trapped inside their own internal monologue and inside their own head anyway. And it is that slight shift of perspective. It's that little extra bit of flavoring that really brings things about. And I think the best creators probably have their sounding boards and their forums and the people they talk to that just, hey, there's no such thing as a bad idea. There are stupid ideas, and sometimes stupid ideas are the best ideas. And then sometimes you have a great idea, and it's like, yeah, that sounds good, but it's probably too clunky. And I come across that all the time. And Ian's the one generally to pull me back off that ledge. He's like, okay, let's dial this back about 10 notches, and we'll get you there.
Yeah, I'm for writing for like story ideas and adventure ideas and things like that. Ideas are easy. Ideas I can come up with. It's the plot to make the idea work.
Right.
That's what I've always had issues with. That's one of the reasons why I prefer editing to writing when it comes to literature, because I am much better at looking at someone else's idea and improving on it, or helping them improve on it, than I am at coming up with my own ideas, because I can always start a story, but as soon as I get past that initial idea, like, okay, now where's the story part of this?
Right. No, I'm just gonna sit like No Face and shove media into my head holes.
Anyway, that's enough waxing poetic on this for today. We need to go ahead and get started.
All right, let's get this ball rolling.
So I did go ahead and make up a few random tables because we both like tables. We both like rolling the clicky-clacky math rocks. And so the first table that I have is for the time frame.
Okay.
So when exactly are we going to be setting this urban fantasy story? Because it is generally modern, but it doesn't have to be present day modern.
Yeah, so like we discussed last week, generally it's going to be post-industrial revolution. So Victorian era is borderline, but generally it's going to be post. So again, generally looking 1850s and after, by and large.
Yeah, so the table that I generated goes from, I guess it's Edwardian, like 1890-ish.
Okay.
So from there on up into the relatively near future, like 2050.
Okay.
So slightly futuristic to like turn of the 19th to the 20th century.
You start talking like 2050, and suddenly I'm playing Civ 5 again because I think that's the cutoff date. Maybe it's 2250, but yeah, it's pretty close to there. I'm like, oh wait, okay, now I want to play Civ.
Yeah. I could have taken it up to 2112 and made it a Rush reference, but So do you want to roll some dice on this?
Yeah, I've got some digital math rocks today. I have my good
Okay.
dice are packed away for upcoming events. So
All right. So this one's going to be a D10.
D10, easy peasy. Let's see what we got. Dun, 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 dun. We got a tres.
3. Okay, so this is Depression era, so 1929 to 1945. So from the stock market crash of 29 to the end of World War II.
I like this, especially. Okay, so obviously you can do a ton with World War II. You can really do a lot with the economic levers of just the stock market crash in America itself, or the various financial markets throughout Europe and Asia. This also ties in things we talked about last week. If you wanted to do something like a film noir, like the old pirate grizzled detective, ties right into this era. If you wanted to do Old Gods of Appalachia, wanted to break away from traditional D&D, this would work really well. If you wanted to do Kids on Bikes, a little bit more difficult to do, but again, there was still a little bit of that youthful freedom that existed in this time. You could really catch the very end of the Roaring Twenties as your setup. So again, this is a very, very ripe period to do a lot with.
Right, yeah, and this could be a way of we could tie it into, like an alternate timeline sort of thing where the market crash corresponds with a crash in magic, a crash in magical ability, like
Oh yeah.
a sudden decline in magic.
Okay, I
Like,
like it.
and a lot of that's going to depend on some of the later roles that
Because the
we've
stock
got.
market completely depends on fairy dust.
Yeah, it
It's
could
all been in
be.
the magic. I love it.
It could be that, and it could be that someone figured out how to corner the market on magic, and in doing so, cut everyone else out of the market, and as a result, the market collapsed.
Okay, I like that.
But we'll figure that out as we go here.
Okay, I was going to say another thing too that would fit with this really well, given the time. Again, the 20s is when a lot of your breakthroughs in physics, particularly quantum and atomic physics, came about, and so you could have that magic fading in the face of quote quote modern technology, and you could have
Absolutely.
technology replacing magic. And now again, you get something kind of like American Gods, where faith is being lessened by faith, quote quote, within science and understanding.
Yeah, and the Manhattan Project is happening at the end of this time segment.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is definitely something to keep in mind. Okay. So the next one is for a blended genre. See if there is another genre that we are going to combine with our urban fantasy here.
Okay.
It's another D10.
Okay. I'll roll this one, or you're throwing it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Deuce. I'm rolling low tonight.
Well, we just made Call of Cthulhu because that's Eldritch/Cosmic Horror.
Yes, we've got it. Perfect. Okay. I do have to make again. This is a D&D call-in, but where apparently Wizards is releasing their new Book of Evil, whatever. It's basically the 5th edition of the Book of Vile Deeds, but they have made Portsmouth an official location within D&D. Portsmouth is a part of Massachusetts where Lovecraft based many, many, many of his stories. So Cthulhu technically D&D canon now.
Well, I don't know about that. That would be they would have to get rights to that.
They would have to get rights, but I mean, again, you can blend. I mean, Portsmouth's there. You can just start shuffling some stuff over for your own homebrew.
I don't know. I don't know if I like that.
Okay.
Because they have Saltmarsh.
They do have Saltmarsh, yeah.
And Saltmarsh is a D&D exclusive, a D&D original location where you can do all of those same sorts of Cthulhu-esque Eldritch horror stuff.
Okay.
I mean, you've got the aboleths and you've got the sea spawn and you've got all of that stuff in and around Saltmarsh.
I see that. So you're saying they should have just stuck with their own and stayed in their own lane?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like they already have their own IP. They don't need to be going and stealing other people's IP.
Gotcha.
They are a billion-dollar company. They don't need other people's IP.
I like that. Okay.
Grumble, grumble.
Fair. So my brain's doing brain things, and I'm on like 6 different trails at once because all the rabbit trails. But this also ties in really well with something like Hellboy. Again, talking about that franchise, which was a great urban fantasy. Again, dealing in with that Depression slash World War II era. If you want to deal with Europe, particularly Germany, you did have the government factions, they being who they were, but they were starting to delve into the occult, trying to find mystical power to bolster their military strength as well. And if we're starting to deal with an eldritch horror or some sort of eldritch creature in this as well, that absolutely ties in. And again, we get that balance of magic versus science and technology, plus where would these eldritch horrors fit in? Are people trying to summon these things in? And this would mirror, like I said, several aspects, particularly early on, of Hellboy, which again is a great franchise and a great storyline. So again, a lot of possibilities for us to work with here. You could go straight Cthulhu with this. You could even go, again, just purely the horrors of the economy. And maybe that's what skewed the economy, or something has consumed the reason. Maybe that's what caused the American Dust Bowl, was some eldritch horror sapped the moisture out of the land and caused people to migrate as part of that.
Yeah. And another thing that I had forgotten about until just now, this is also corresponding with Prohibition.
Oh, yes. Oh, ooh, yeah. Okay.
And so now we also have that element to potentially incorporate, the whole, we already had speakeasies. So now
Yeah.
we're going to have, our speakeasies are going to be magically themed. These are not just places where you go for alcohol. These are places where you go to do magic. These are places where you go to look for people to help you with magical problems.
I like this. And so, referencing Jim Butcher, I could see McAnally's being a speakeasy like this. And maybe this is where you need to go to just unmask for a little bit and not, try to blend in with the normies for a while. And you can kind of let that drop. And so maybe, yeah, you do walk in, you walk past the bar, and you're going to see Fae and dwarves and elves and Bigfoot and whatever other cryptids are there, because they could take a rest from trying to blend in with modern society.
Yeah, but this is also going to be one of those things where, because sanity is such a huge component with Eldritch and Cosmic Horror, this is the place where the people who have been touched by the Eldritch,
Yes.
the people who have been touched by the other side, this is where they can go, where they know the other people around them have witnessed the same sorts of things and are going to believe them.
Yes.
I mean, this is their safe space.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
this is the place where they can go and be understood as they are.
Yeah, I would even say that, like, if we were going to build this as a full, like, so we're building the world, but if we were building game mechanics around this too, and just homebrewing like homebrew rules and game style, again, dealing with the Eldritch Horror, if you had a sanity mechanic, something like Darkest Dungeon or Call of Cthulhu or many others, the speakeasies would be the point where you would take your rest or try to recover your sanity points for some things, because these people would understand and be able to potentially offer solace, or maybe even drain it further from you by stressing you further, maybe offering you a deal or a bargain you can't refuse, or making a requirement from you that might be more taxing than you would expect.
Yeah. And we can also incorporate into this the excise man, the government agent who is there to try and find and stop and confiscate all of this illegal liquor.
Okay.
They are also going to be trying to keep tabs on all of these people who have contact with these eldritch entities, these people who are, their sanity is slipping because of their constant exposure, making sure that, they don't snap and suddenly become a threat to society.
Okay, I like that.
Or perhaps the eldritch horrors are the power behind the government. And so these excise men are actually agents for the horror.
How about we blend the two? So bear with me for a little bit, okay? The Eldritch Horror has become known to the government entities within the government, and they know that Eldritch Horror is a threat. The government doing government things lump all supernatural beings as a quote threat. And so again, kind of tying in, it's a little bit late for this or a little bit early for this period, but it does tie in, much like they forced a lot of the Native Americans in America into reservation camps. They could be doing the same with the mystical as well. Or,
Yeah.
if you want to summon Shrek, kind of like Lord Farquaad and sending everyone to the swamp. And these speakeasies or these underground clubs or whatever else we want to call them could be those points where either people are trying to hide. And again, at that point, you could also have something like an Anne Frank scenario where you have
Right.
people from the supernatural hiding from the government or places where they are forced into concentration areas by the government, which is causing unexpected consequences, we'll say.
Right. And, in this time period, we also have the Japanese internment camps.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, that is definitely something that is happening in this time frame in real life.
I like that.
So,
So I think where we were talking about things like we're between the stock market, I mean, kind of keeping North America focused, but
yeah,
between the stock market and the Dust Bowl, maybe removing the cryptid and the fantasy portions of the mystical, the mythical from these lands is what has affected one, the stock market, and two, affected just the soil and the earth, literally the earth itself, by
right.
removing them. And the earth is kind of recoiling from that, which is affecting the normies around them.
Right. Yeah, that is a good approach. That is definitely something worth investigating further as we go along. Speaking of investigating further as we go along, next up is the flavor of the magic. And this is
Ooh.
actually two rolls and combined. So you
Okay.
roll one, I'll roll one. Let me know what you got.
What are we rolling? D10 again?
Yes, D10 again.
A four. Wow, I've got a three, a two, and a four.
Okay, so you got a 4, which is divine magic. So gods and devils, and I guess in this case, it's going to be like eldritch
Yeah, in time with the
entities.
Eldritch. Yeah, absolutely.
And I got 5, which is blood magic.
Ooh, oh, oh, yeah.
So,
See, and this again, this ties into the more German occult, where again they're trying to find magical power at any price. At any price. Ooh, how are we going to work blood magic into this? There are so many ways to throw that in.
well, I mean, there have been so many instances throughout history, throughout human history, where blood magic is divine magic.
Yes,
Blood sacrifice, reading the entrails, things of that nature. Those are, blood sacrifices to the gods.
yes. I was going to go in that direction too, but go ahead and finish your thought.
Those are all very much things that have historical precedent in our world. Um,
Yes.
but I kind of want to take a different approach to it,
Okay.
more along the lines of maybe the practitioner has to. You don't use the blood of others to power your magic. You have to use your own blood as a way to make the pact with your power to draw the magical energies to do your magic.
Okay. I can see that, and that would work in a lot of ways. I like that. I was going to go the opposite direction, and maybe those that are trying to, again, because this is an urban fantasy, and we still have to figure out how our player characters are going to be able to see or encounter this. But by and large, again, remember that a lot of this is running behind the scenes for your everyday average NPC. And so, yes, maybe there is a faction that does want to summon these eldritch horrors for whatever magical or mystical powers they can bring. Some governments are trying to prevent any kind of magical, mythical, divine power. So you have that division. Kind of referencing the original FMA, so spoilers for a 20 plus year old anime. But the base of that was their world was a mirror of ours, and their alchemy was actually fueled by the death in our world. Our deaths was their magical energy, basically. So, what if the global wars, previous World War One and lead up to World War Two, is the blood magic to bring the Eldritch horrors in?
Now that has been done before and would work. That would definitely be something that we could incorporate in this particular in this
But
particular setting.
beyond that too, where you were taking your idea and where the blood magic has to come individually from the person. Do you have a table for our location?
I don't.
Okay.
Um,
So I'm thinking maybe we wind up somewhere closer to like New Orleans, and you have like that voodoo blood magic, that type of ritualistic magic, and that could be your way you pierce the veil to see the mythical is through that kind of blood magic. And so you can take a D4 or a D6 or whatever roll against your own health points for that blood magic to be able to see or get some sort of information from the mythical, that the fantasy that's running behind the urban.
yeah, that could work. Now I've got 2 more tables.
Okay. So yeah, we still have more stuff to build up.
Yeah, we still have a little bit more stuff to build up. Those are definitely points to keep in mind as we go along here. So the question now becomes, what sort of things are magicians doing with the magic?
Great question. Great question. Are we rolling that or are we brainstorming?
That's a brainstorming thing. I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, I have a what is the power source of the magic question still on the table that we could do to get a better idea of it, but this is still trying to figure out what are the things that magicians are doing with the magic.
Okay. So again, we have a couple things. We determined that we have a divine / eldritch horror magic faction, for lack of a better term. We have blood magic as a source of magic as well. We could definitely tap into some Mesoamerican mythology where, again, the priest kings had to perform certain blood rites every year to maintain their kingdoms and their crops and their people, especially looking at the Mayans and the Aztecs. That could definitely draw in. So again, at that point, we'd have to figure out. I kind of like that. I think if we built a Mesoamerican theme going with Mesoamerican deities versus the Eldritch horrors. And again, you're trying to invoke the deities with blood magic to help fend off the Eldritch horrors while you have science kind of building and stifling everything, kind of muting as modern science progresses. So you almost have a 3-way faction.
Right. And that does sound like a great idea. My only qualm with that is I don't know nearly enough about Mesoamerican mythology and culture to where I feel comfortable? To be qualified to do that.
Fair. But we could definitely use that as an inspiration, though. And so
yes, absolutely.
We have the people using their blood magic ritualistically for whatever deity or divine purpose, but they are doing that to fend off the Eldritch.
So I have an idea. Bear with me.
Okay.
So the divine magic is sort of that, because it seems like we are doing this as an American-centric story.
Yeah, it looks like we're focusing in North American, yeah.
And I kind of see, let's assume that the divine magic and the blood magic are not being practiced at the same time. These are 2 completely separate sources of magic.
Okay.
And you do one or you do the other. You don't really, I mean, they could be blended, but you don't necessarily blend them.
You don't mix your brown and yellows?
Yeah. And so the divine magic in this would be sort of like a Native American, Mesoamerican sort of spiritual magic.
Okay.
It's sort of a very naturalistic thing, which is leading to lots of abundance throughout the country, leading up to and through the First World War. And then the blood magic is something that comes up in Europe.
Okay.
And the blood magic is the reason for World War I. Okay. And blood magic really takes hold in the carnage and then the aftermath of World War I. And the Americans become exposed to the blood magic when they come in at the end of the war.
Ooh, okay.
And some of them bring that back. And so the Spanish flu becomes the result. That becomes the result of this blood magic influence. It's sort of like an immune response of the divine magic trying to push the blood magic out.
Okay, so the blood magic is going to act as both a contagion and a corrupting force.
Yes.
Which would back well with the Eldritch, I think. I think that fits really well, as you have an Eldritch trying to corrupt.
And they are coming across from Europe into the Americas. It's white colonization version 2.0.
Yeah, okay. I can track with that. No, I like it. I like it. Okay.
So we have those same sort of parallels of the divine magic is this native spiritual magic that's very grounded in the physical space of America, and this blood magic, this eldritch magic coming through, being imbued by these eldritch entities, is a very European, very capitalist, very colonialist sort of vibe.
I love it too because again, while this area was a time of great scientific and industrial advancement, that did bring about a large amount of environmental harm and ruin and toxins. So again, you have radiation, you have cancer, you have lead with the gasoline, you've got, Dow dumping everything into the rivers. So yeah, no, this ties in really well. And I could see these effects of that technology. Maybe that technology was advanced but corrupted early on by this blood magic. And so just the advance of technology being corrupted is going to further corrupt the environment that it's in, as unregulated technology tends to do.
Yeah.
And so even that, we could take that from this time period, and if you wanted to build onto that to a modern time period as time went on, now we have a through thread from the period we've started through to now. You could even probably take it back even to the beginning of the industrial era with, again, early technology, coal, smoke, coal dust, things like that, great fires like the giant fire of London things. So yeah, no, we have now built a common thread through all timelines, and I think that fits beautifully.
Yeah.
Okay, well done.
And you're talking about, the companies dumping things and the various chemical companies and stuff. That was really the next phase after this time period. That was really post World War II.
Yeah.
It was like the late 40s into the 50s and the 60s, where you start getting the petrochemical companies really throwing, deriving everything they possibly can from liquid crude and
just dumping the rest.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is now we have that through line through all of the possible timelines you would want to explore with this. We've got a through line that connects all on the same page.
And if you want to take this particular conflict that we're having in our setting as we're setting it up now and extrapolate it into that time period and keep the real world historical timeline to progress in the same sort of way, what that means is that the Eldritch Horrors won.
Or are still largely winning, yes.
Or are still largely winning. Yeah.
No, I like it.
Yeah, this is working. This is working far better than I thought it would.
Start fitting together. This is we've got we're getting a framework. I like it.
Okay, so next up is another D10 roll. Why is the magic a secret?
A 7. Something above half. Finally.
All right. So the reason why magic is a secret is most of the instructional texts were lost/destroyed in a calamity. And now this doesn't necessarily have to be texts, but it could be.
Now, again, are we going through with which magic? I think we should roll 2 of these.
Okay, so I think this would be the divine magic. Because this hits so hard with the Spanish conquistadors and their total deletion of native cultures and native writings, because the
English and the Dutch weren't a whole lot better. The French were passable, but still, I mean, it wasn't just the Spanish.
But the Spanish had it. They started sooner and they did it longer.
Yeah, when the Spanish showed up, everyone was having a bad. There was no good to the Spanish showing up.
No. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and roll for the blood magic. Why is the blood magic a secret? 2, non-magicians can't see the source of the magic.
Perfect. And again, that's that eldritch being hidden or remaining hidden and using people as puppets as the eldritch horrors are inclined to do. I like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I like this too because within various Native American groups, there are, within their own mythos and stories, times where their people, their practitioners, their shamans, their medicine men, their elders, were given or granted certain powers to protect their people. And because so much crap was going on, wink, wink, Western expansion, that they became corrupted by the use of that power because they started using it above and beyond kind of, how do I want to phrase this? The saying power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So they were going overkill with they were using the power in an imbalanced fashion, and they became corrupted, a corrupted source themselves. And so again, you could kind of work with that too, and kind of deal with, again, needing to balance magic with its purpose as well, and not going overkill with things. And particularly something, again, even having maybe perhaps the blood magic trying to corrupt the divine magic at some point by using blood magic to try to enhance. And now, again, you get into different things, but you can definitely deal with different levels of this magic system. I like how this was working out.
Yeah, I definitely see that the Eldritch side, the blood magic side of all of this, does want to corrupt the divine magic side of things.
Yeah. And the temptation would be so huge.
And it's because of the nature of the blood magic, as we're establishing it here, because it is that colonialist, capitalist, expansionist ideology that is pushing it.
Yeah. And we've built in it itself as a contagion. It wants to spread into everything.
Yes. And I think that we would probably start getting, if we were to actually, create a story in this setting, we would start getting instances of divine magicians getting corrupted by the blood magic and starting to blend the two together and creating a far more powerful entity, a far more powerful magical source than either one individually could be.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Yeah. Okay.
This is the manifest destiny of magic.
Yes.
Is what this is. It's the European self-delusion of exceptionalism that you get, that combined with the freedom and the expanse of America.
You said that, and I want to tie this into Old Gods of Appalachia so badly. Because you could take, again, a lot of that, you have a lot of that European folk tradition that would be that blood magic, where, again, it's been corrupted by that over time. And then, again, a lot of those within Appalachia and the region tried to blend a lot of their folk tradition with the local traditions from a lot of the native populations here. And so that's when that happened, and that's where your manifest destiny kind of starts, and it goes from the edge of the colonies to the Louisiana Purchase to, further on and to the Mexico. Yeah, I mean, you could tie that in historically and it would work.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we have one more question on the random tables, which is, what is the power source of the magic? Which we have already established more or less the flavor of the two different opposing magics here, but we haven't established where they're getting their power from.
Okay.
And so this is going to be a D12 roll.
Let's see what we get.
And so you let me know are you rolling for divine or blood?
I'll roll for blood. I got an 11.
An 11? That works. Microorganisms.
Yes! Blood viruses.
All right. And then the divine magic 3. This works. The alignment of cosmic bodies.
Ooh, okay. I like it. I would imagine alignment of cosmic bodies would tie in more with the Eldritch, but it works. And again, even with the divine, because
the sun and the moon are cosmic bodies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the sun, especially in Mesoamerican religious beliefs, the sun and the moon are both huge figures and huge sources of magical power in those belief systems.
Yes. So I like what we have so far. I think we've got a good background for everything. Now, things we brought up last week that are important. Again, especially within urban fantasy, your locale, your location, your setting is as much a supporting character as anything else within the story, especially if you're building a story. But again, that setting is something to greatly consider. Where do we want to put our setting at? We definitely want a boundary or a location that's going to be frontiers-ish, because we do want a conflict or a strain between the divine and the eldritch. So where will that be?
So I was actually thinking about this a little bit earlier today because of your personal background, I was thinking, what if we set this in Fresno?
Okay.
I've never been to Fresno. I don't know anything about it, but you grew up in and around Fresno, so I figured that you would be able to help with any sort of questions that might arise regarding that.
It could work.
I was
Fresno.
thinking because this is the American Southwest, so you are still going to have a substantially large Native American population there. Fresno itself at this point would still be a fairly new city. I was looking it up. It was incorporated in 1885.
Yeah.
So
So
it's still fairly young.
it's newish, and a lot of people again came to the Central Valley and towards Fresno because of the Dust Bowl. So again, you do get that big push migration of, again, if you ever read Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath or anything like that, that's exactly the situation people were in. If you've listened to Rage Against the Machine's Ghost of Tom Joad, I think that's what it is. Again, referencing Grapes of Wrath, very much that. And it's really, it would work really well for the Divine Magic too. There are some, I mean, there's still a handful of native tribes within Central California that have their territories and their areas. But you also have Yosemite, which is absolutely a national monument of natural. You have the Sequoia National Parks, which is absolutely a steadfast national monument of nature. You have the Central Coast, like Morro Bay and Monterey, which are also nature preserves of the ocean. And, again, coming back, pushing back from that Dust Bowl, you have, again, Los Alamos is in New Mexico. So again, you got a lot of that push of technology and industry coming in. That could be a decent battlefront. I think it could be workable.
And if we want to expand that a little bit more, if we're doing this closer towards the end of this period, say 37, 38, immediately pre-World War II,
Yes.
because this is, the American Southwest is that, even in American pop culture, it is that last bastion of the indigenous American,
Yes.
right? It is that last place where, pardon the crude terms, but it's the last place where the Indians were Indians.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that definitely ties in more for like Arizona, New Mexico.
Right. And I get that.
No, I feel you.
But this is also, this gives us a way to say that this region, this is the last bastion of this American divine magic. And the Dust Bowl and everything, the Spanish flu and everything that has been happening in the 20 years before our scene opens for this game or this story that we are creating here. This has just been this European-based eldritch blood magic just rolling across the American frontier like an unstoppable tide. And it's just rolling forward and pushing all of this divine magic further and further west until this is their last stronghold. This is their last holdout. This is where they will hold their ground and stop it, because this is all that they have left.
Let me look up something real quick. I'm thinking Fresno could work, but I'm thinking there might be one or two better locations. Okay. I'm thinking a little bit further south, more like the Mojave or possibly Death Valley.
The issue with Death Valley is that Death Valley is not urban.
Death Valley is not necessarily urban, but you are pretty close to LA County, as would the Mojave, like things like Bristol, things like that. And again, you're going to push pretty close, but you're also more into, I think, where, because we do want to keep the thing, and we do have the Shoshone tribe. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly.
Shoshone?
Shoshone, maybe, yeah, Shoshone.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that Fresno was further south than it is.
No, Fresno is about 5 hours north of LA and 4 hours south of San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's literally right in the middle of everything. 3 hours from the coast and about 2 hours from Yosemite.
So what about Bakersfield? Would Bakersfield be a good?
Bakersfield, possibly. Again, more so that you're right over the grapevine from LA.
Because I really don't want to do LA.
Okay.
I think LA just.
That's why I think if we did something like I said, like it's not Bristol. What's the name of the place? I'm blanking on it. It's right there off the I-40, and again, where you have a lot of people from the Dust Bowl coming through. It's how they would come across. It's by the Tehachapi Pass. It's Mojave.
Okay. Yeah, I happen to have the map up and I'm looking at it right now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to defer to your knowledge on this region to come up with an appropriate location.
Let me let me look because, like I said, I think let me zoom out.
Um,
Oh, how the maps have changed. Like Fresno is good, and a lot of people came to Fresno, which is great. But Fresno was very largely overwhelmed, especially by European influence, because again, you had the Dust Bowl, you had a lot of people from the Mediterranean, you had a lot of Greeks, you had a lot of Armenians, you had Sicilians, you
right.
had Russians that came over later. So I mean, Fresno for that is a beautiful multicultural mixing bowl. It is the best of all that for a reason. But to have a stand where the natives would hold off. Barstow, that's what I was thinking of. It was Bristol and Barstow. Barstow is a smaller city, but again, it's right there off the 40 where people would be coming in. It's right next to the Mojave National Preserve, fairly close to Death Valley. It is that southern desolate part that looks more like Vegas. This would be the part of California that they covered in New Vegas, particularly with NCR, would be this part of California. Death Valley's to the north, Mojave's to the east. Coming up, honestly, even holding off something, Mariposa's smallish, but you could have. I mean, Mariposa Modesto would be good. Again, you're going to have a large influx of people coming in, but something like Mariposa, and you could still do an urban fantasy, and even set it up in an old ghost town because you still have the remnants of the boom towns from the gold rush, and people were still mining gold at the time.
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, again, the gold rush would bring in a lot of Europeans trying to find fortune and power at any price for and encroaching on the last, held lands. And then definitely we could use Yosemite and Sequoia National Park and that upper part of the Sierra Nevadas, which would be really good for a good setting of divine. So you could almost do, like I said, kind of like a late Western / boomtown, I think would fit really well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially now you're pushing prohibition because we talked about that too.
Yeah.
You could have your saloons or your hideouts or even your places within reservations where you could get in or get out, where people would let you in or out depending. Yeah, I think if we just established a boomtown in one of these areas, I think that would work.
Okay. Yeah, and that's another nice thing about it being urban fantasy is that it is fiction, and so if we need to invent a town in this region,
We
we
just
can
do
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're thinking somewhere around Mariposa.
Yeah,
Okay. The locations that I know only because of Fallout.
exactly.
But yeah, that would be a great sort of thing.
And that did, because I did want to go back and see how we were going to tie in again the speakeasy type setups that we had.
Right. And, primarily when you think about prohibition and you think about the speakeasy and stuff, you're thinking more about the East Coast. You're thinking like Atlantic seaboard. You're thinking up around Chicago where they're smuggling stuff in from Canada. You're thinking Appalachia where they're,
Moonshiners, yeah.
yeah, where they're cooking moonshine and stills out in the hollers. You don't really, at least me being born and raised on the East Coast, you don't really think about prohibition in the context of the West Coast very often.
Not as much, but it was there. And hooch is hooch, and people still wanted to
Absolutely.
yeah. Especially you look at like San Francisco. Oh yeah, yeah. And then too, I can't recall. I don't think the peyote actually grew. I know it didn't grow in the Sierras, but I think there was actually a bit that grew again in that southeastern part. I have to double check, but I mean, amongst other things that were imbibed in not only alcohol, but I mean, again, you have a lot of traditional. There is something called a Jimson weed or a loco weed that was used for medicinal and religious purposes as well. That was also banned during the period.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, that's actually what if part of that prohibition for those more natural medicinal was a ploy from the blood magic to limit the power.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense because we have already suggested, and I think this would establish that the Eldritch Blood Magic faction has managed to get itself into the government.
Yeah. And we said that a lot of the divine magic was being lost because they lost access to it, either their
Right.
writings, and again, being able to enter, the divine state through whatever chemicals they were using or
Absolutely.
whatever plants. Now it's outlawed, so fewer people can access it. Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I
And
like it.
so prohibition becomes a cover for imposing disadvantage on my enemies.
Yes.
And also because, we're at a stage where the government is going to try to weaponize anything that it thinks it can weaponize.
Yes.
And so if it thinks it can weaponize blood magic, it is going to do everything it can to figure out how to do that.
Right.
And if one of the things it has to do in order to be able to do that is to snuff out the people who are going to tell them, no, you can't do that, then that's what they're going to do.
Yes.
And add on top of that, the less than stellar, if I'm going to be tactful about it, interactions between the natives and the American government over the preceding century and a half. To understate everything,
Yes.
that also makes sense because we are still in a very racially minded America at this
Yeah.
point. And the indigenous natives are, depending on where you are, either half a rung above or half a rung below the blacks
Yeah. Yeah.
at this particular point in American history.
Right.
And so it makes historical sense that these are the sort of things that would happen.
You also have in this area too, again, talking about the Japanese internment, and some of those camps were pushed this far. I mean, again, they moved them all over the place, but they largely wanted to move the Japanese away from the coast. That was the large threat. And so some of these camps, I believe there were some camps near Mariposa. Let me double check.
It sounds right.
There were none in Mariposa County. They were moved to Assembly Centers, Manzanar, Pasadena, Pinedale. Actually, Pinedale near Fresno. Okay, so yeah, there were some near Fresno, so a bit. But again, not terribly far off Tulare, so not within Mariposa County specifically, but close-ish within a couple hours.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's something you could work into a story as well. So at this point, I think if we wanted to work on like a game system, I think probably something like Powered by the Apocalypse. That's the one where you roll a pool of 20s, right?
No.
No. Which one's that? Well, which one am I thinking of?
Powered by the Apocalypse uses D6s.
That's what I'm thinking of, yeah. And you have the pool of D6s?
No.
What's the one that kind of works like Fallout, where you have the pool that you can work with?
That is Forged in the Dark.
Okay.
We have a pool of D6s, you roll them, and you use the highest result.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's based on Blaze in the Dark.
Okay. I think a system like that would work, or even something kind of like Kids on Bikes, or, where you do a stat buy. I think this would be more of a story roleplay driven type of game, just what we're fleshing out currently, than a typical D&D combat oriented type game.
Yeah, I don't view this as a game setting where the magic is flashy and quick enough to really use it as a combat trick.
Right. No, the magic definitely would be subtle, and it would be probably performative.
It's subtle, it's ritualistic, yeah.
Yeah. Like you'd probably get buffs to skill checks, maybe so many per day, or maybe a buff where you could like influence a person or talk, or maybe, again, definitely resting if we were going to do that sanity component. You would definitely need that to recharge.
I mean, honestly, Old Gods would be ideal for this sort of thing.
Yeah, it probably would be, yeah. What system did they make their own system, or do they use a system?
It's based on the Cypher system.
Okay.
Which is a D20 system, but the way that magic works in Old Gods, a lot of it is tied in with magic items.
Yeah.
That you carry on your person, and then you use them when you need them, and they provide very limited but very meaningful bonuses.
Yeah.
And it's very subtle things. There's nothing like, you throw a fireball at somebody. There's nothing that flashy. It's all things like you're able to set this thing in the corner, and you're able to close your eyes and look out through this object to observe this room for the next 4 hours, or things like that. And the subtlety of the magic in Old Gods, I think, would suit this setting well.
Very, very well. Yes, absolutely. I agree.
And on top of that, it is already set in this time period.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to adapt it to adjust it chronologically.
Yeah, no, I like that. And again, I think that does fit. Again, so we're going to be kind of like in a boom town of some sort. And again, probably up in what we call the foothills. So you're not up in the high Sierras, but it's kind of mountainous. So the terrain's close-ish to what we'd find here in Appalachia, where it's kind of rolly. You're going to have a bunch of trees and stuff. It's not going to be super flat like the valley. And again, you are going to have that meeting of the urban with the pristine and the natural. And again, I think that matches well. I like what we've come up with thus far. And if we were going to go through and build story hooks, we absolutely could do that. And it would probably be along the lines of misdirecting people or keeping people out of an area, or probably protecting like a site or transporting people from one area to another. I think these all would work within our urban fantasy that we're building up. I think to fill in the Eldritch, again, a lot of people are going to be influenced by the Eldritch without them actually knowing it, while some people are going to be full in, they know it and they're on. And I think that will be the big challenge for our players, is understanding the motivations of the people they interact with. Are they being duped by a system they're unaware they live in, or are they actually a nefarious component of it?
Right. And because we have established that specifically with the blood magic, non-magicians can't see the source of the magic, that they don't have any way, they can't use their senses to detect where that magic is. They don't know that it's being used potentially on them. But because of the way that was worded, and I didn't intend it in that way at the time, but because non-magicians can't see it, then that would mean that magicians can see it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say that it has to be blood magicians.
Okay.
So this is how these divine magicians are able to see the actual practitioners of the opposite camp, basically.
Yeah, one of their few small advantages is they have a natural... Okay.
That they are able to, like, the practitioners of blood magic might have sort of like an aura around them, or there might be like invisible markings on their skin that show that they are practitioners. And like the more you use it, the more it corrupts your body and the more marks the patron entity leaves on them.
Ooh, okay.
And so they're able to tell at a glance if somebody, if they've just started dabbling with it, or if this is like an Aleister Crowley level, this is like an Archmage level threat.
Nice.
That we need to be very reticent about, but we need to make sure we keep tabs on them.
I like it. No, I'm in on this one. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Now all we need to do is have somebody like the guys at Coyote and Crow do something with this, because we're two white boys. This is outside of our wheelhouse.
Right.
But yeah, I really like how this turned out. This is a really interesting setting. This has a lot of potential for conflict, a lot of potential for story. I like where this is going. I like that it is an urban fantasy that is not focused on the East Coast, because so many of them happen in places like Chicago or New York.
Right.
That having it somewhere out west, out on the West Coast, really, I think, puts a new spin on it that I don't see very often.
No, yeah, I agree. And again, this area was still largely developing at the time, which is a big part of that, where obviously Chicago and New York have been long since established. So yeah, no, I absolutely like this. Again, some of these other cities, like definitely through Arizona, New Mexico, again, if you wanted to build out towards that, would be really good. Somewhere up like near Idaho could be really interesting, or Montana even, hitting North and South Dakota. North and South Dakota get a little, again, they stay a little rural, but again, you do have a lot through there. But Washington, like I said, Washington, Idaho, Oregon, that part of California, Arizona, New Mexico, that whole region as kind of that last bastion of westward expansion, I really like. I mean, even if we really wanted to go full way out of our wheelhouse, dropping it right in the middle of Hawaii would not have been terrible either. But again, that would have been, that would take a lot. And definitely out of my experience and my knowledge base, I know a little bit about the region. But
now, just because of the general location and everything, I just thought of a thing to
Okay.
look up. This is also just at the beginning and just before the heyday of Las Vegas.
Yep, it is.
So this would definitely be like Las Vegas is almost like that forward operating base.
Yeah, I mean, Las Vegas is a source of corruption. No one doubts that.
Yeah, but it so well embodies all of the aspects of corruption that we have assigned to this blood
Yes.
magic.
Yes.
It is all of those things to the nth degree.
Absolutely.
And so I think that having Las Vegas as this almost this glowing tumor of blood magic sitting out on the horizon, that it is this lingering malignance on the horizon that we need to be aware of, that is throwing its shadow over this entire setting,
Absolutely.
but it's never actually there. It's this threat that exists just beyond the corner of your eye.
You know what? Again, building into this, you do have Las Vegas to the east-ish. You have Los Angeles to the south, and you have San Francisco to the north. So again, you kind of get that feeling of being surrounded and everything kind of encroaching. Does give that kind of claustrophobic feel, which does feel like, again, like a defensive stand.
Yeah, and I do like that concept. That is the underlying struggle. That is the primary, what's the word? The primary conflict of this
Yeah.
setting is that they have been cornered. They have holed up in this, the last real bastion of power that they have.
Yes.
And they are cornered here, and they are trying to dig in and just weather the storm.
Give me one more quick second. It's going to be slightly before our time, but
Okay.
because we talked about, again, where we have the corruption and we have, that eldritch that's absolutely wanting to corrupt the government. But this comes right at the very beginning, right before our time. The presidency of Teddy Roosevelt may be perhaps one of the last major victories for those with the divine magic. Was they were able to convince or sway Teddy Roosevelt, who created the national park system.
Yeah, I would absolutely be willing to buy into that.
Yeah. And again, that's the thing, especially with the urban fantasy. Everything runs behind the scenes, so it's not big magical things, but it's that influence and the direction of energy and ability and resources that is the big pull.
Yeah. And then, so would it be like Coolidge and Hoover, I think would be
After,
the presidents after Roosevelt that really started it on its decline.
yeah.
And then FDR would have come in and would have been trying to turn it around and try and push back, because he's Teddy Roosevelt's nephew, I think.
Like
Is that
second
right?
cousin or something weird. Yeah, it's some weird.
Nephew or great nephew or something like that.
Yeah.
Is a direct relative of Teddy. But, having that familial tie suggests that he would also be on the same side and would be trying to push that. And that's where you get the New Deal and all of those sorts of movements. The fact that he worked so hard to counteract the Great Depression and try and pull the country out of the Great Depression, and ultimately succeeded.
I'm gonna say, wait, I'm gonna throw a wrench in this.
Okay.
Because again, FDR falls fully within. And I will say that there was some familial influence perhaps from Teddy Roosevelt, but FDR, again, did sign off on the internment camps. He did a handful. I mean, he was a good president.
I'm not I'm not condoning.
No. What I'm saying, okay, let me finish real quick. I'm not saying yay, I'm not saying grr, but what I'm saying is FDR was a man conflicted, and he was a movable piece that both sides were vying to direct.
Yes. And I think the point that I want to make that works off of that statement is that he comes in and he is trying to, combat this, but the forces of the blood magic are already entrenched. They're already in place. They are specifically already in DC. They are already in the government.
Yes.
And so he is limited in what he actually is capable of accomplishing.
Yes.
In order to fight back. He is fighting them back one-handed.
Yeah.
He's had one hand tied behind his back by the fact that they're already there and established.
Yes.
Because his predecessors would have allowed that.
Right. No, yeah, I'm with that too. And I would say that, again, the Eldritch doing their best to influence while the Divine also doing its best to influence. And so I think that would be a very movable piece.
And if we further want to put this corrupting influence as a part of this, we can say that the blood magic is the reason why FDR was crippled, that it wasn't polio, that it was or that polio was the tool used by the blood magicians to cripple FDR.
Again, it's a contagion, and polio did ravage the country for quite a while.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. We have managed to come up with a whole lot of really juicy ideas.
Yes.
And I like that we started from nothing and ended up here in basically an hour and a half.
Yeah, no, I definitely like our U.S. alternate history.
Yeah, this is probably going to edit down to about an hour, but in about an hour and a half, we managed to come up with all of this, and I love that.
Yeah, we've not got to do this in a while. We definitely need to do more of it.
All right, so thank you everyone for listening. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email undercommontaste@gmail.com. Or come join us on our Discord. You can find a link to the Discord through our website, undercommontaste.com. You can also find links there to our Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste, and our itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io.
If this is your first time listening, we're very happy you found us. You can find our other episodes and join us for either lore deep dives, content creators, world building, all the things we do. Just look up Undercommon Taste on your podcatcher of choice.
Stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on Instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.